Hi everyone. Today we are going to talk about book. So yes, this is a book I made from the movie Hocus Pocus. There's one side of it. There's the spine, his eyeball, and I made this book out of a numerology book, a birthday numerology book, because I thought that would be pretty cool to open it up and actually have something mystical in there. It was a paperback book. You can do this. I'll show you how to do this part to make it a little bit stronger. But you can do paperback or you could do hardcover. I preferred the paperback. So let's get started. So this is the book we're going to use this time. It's just Astroanalysis Aquarius. I had a hard time finding a book that wasn't super expensive, that was also kind of what I was looking for, which is, kind of large size. You don't have to do this size. Also, it's paperback, which I prefer. And the pages themselves are already slightly yellowed and frayed. So that's great too. You could use a cookbook. Cookbooks kind of have spells in them with their recipes. You can do any book, really. It can just be any old book if you wanted it to be. But like I said, I preferred to do one that had a little bit more of the spiritual or spells, witchy spells, things like that. To be honest with you, you can go ahead and just get a diary or something like that that's empty and make it into book, and then you can decorate the inside however you want with that as well to create your own potions and stuff and completely make it your own. But for today, we're just going to go ahead and start with this one. Again, it's about the size of a paper, maybe a little bit larger than a paper, so about 8.5 by 11 this way and 8.5 this way. The next step that I like to do when creating book is I get my book and I just cut out some old Amazon box or whatever cardboard box you have laying around, and I like to make it just a little bit difference in size here because I'm going to go ahead and put that inside the book just to make that flap a little bit stronger. Now, if you have a hard copy book, obviously you don't have to do this. And if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. I just like it because it makes that a little bit more durable. And I like the way it makes the inside of the book look as well. The nice thing about cardboard is it's got all these little holes here. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to flatten this out the best you possibly can. So you're just going to squeeze the entire cardboard box, letting it all get as skinny as possible. Alright, so I've gone ahead and I've broken this down. All those inside pieces are nice and flat, so it makes the cardboard a little bit easier, a little bit moldable, more moldable. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this first page. So I'm looking at this book here, and I like that this page is blank. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this cardboard right on in here, like so, right into the spine. And I'm going to close it. Make sure it's in a really good place there. So see, it's like that. So what it does is it leaves this nice little gap on either side and the top. So when I glue this to the top here, like that, once that's in place, then I'm going to go ahead and glue these pages together, and I'm going to glue those down, but it leaves this nice gap to be able to close the paper around it. And I'll show you what I mean. So you're going to want 2 pieces of cardboard, one for the front and then one for the back, and you can, however many pages you want to go. But that's basically the starting point, but just start with gluing the one side, and then I will show you the next step. All right, so I've gone through, and I'm gonna have to keep doing this a couple times because the pages want to separate till the glue starts to dry and hold. But you want that to be nice and solid there on all your sides. So you can see this one holds a little bit better. This one's starting to come apart in places, so you're just gonna keep squeezing those together until that glue starts drying and holding really well. But as you can see, it makes a nice little inside front page, and it makes it pretty sturdy and what kind of like a feeling of what a nice leather bound book would feel like. So you're going to do that to both the front and the back. Don't be afraid to get glue on the front because you're going to get glue on the front anyway, and you're going to be covering this, so it's not a big deal to keep everything nice and spick and span. You can be messy with this part. Okay, now that the edges are all dry and stuck together nicely, we're going to move on to the next step. For this, I like Mod Podge, and I like the matte style, not the shiny, just for the after effect. What we're going to do is we're going to get some paper towels. So on this one side, there's some designs. I don't really want those to show, but on the other side, it is just little ruffles. So there's no real design. And we're going to go ahead and soak these paper towels in the Mod Podge and place them on here. When it dries, it's going to really give you kind of like a skin texture, since book in the movie is made from skin. Okay, so I've got my Mod Podge ready here in this, and I'm going to go ahead and start getting these paper towels just kind of soaked with this. It's a pretty messy part. I'm just going to soak it really good here, so it's nice and wet. We're going to pull this over here so it can catch some of the glue. Don't want to waste. So now this piece is really soaked here. Let me get the middle part a little bit better. You can see it's really soaked in. But what it's going to do is it kind of makes this a little bit more elastic as well, which is good, because then you're going to kind of spread it out a little bit more. So there we go. We're going to open up our towel, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it on the book here. But we don't want it to be perfectly laid out because, again, it's made of skin. So we're going to just kind of drape it here. Drape it around, get it all kind of attached. And you know, actually what you can do is just rip pieces so that it's like pieces of skin that you're tethering together. So I'm going to tether this guy here, and we'll wrap it around a little ways so that it makes a nice edging. So if you want to wrap it around towards the end like that, get it around the edges just a little bit, not a whole lot. Cleans up those edges a little bit there. But then also just start layering in these little pieces like this. And as you get to the edges, we're going to have that, and we're going to flip that way. We're going to let this go up here a little. And again, wrap it just a bit here. Now we got some good pieces going on. But you see how we have this overlap? What you can do here is this is going to be, you know, we can kind of just scrunch it together like that. So as it dries, it's going to have like a whole scrunching raised area. And then that way you can make this part look like a seam and like some skin, so you can have some different pieces there. So we're going to go ahead and keep doing this until this front side's covered. We'll have to do the back side later after this is dry. Otherwise, you're just going to glue it to the table. As you can see, we've got this first side covered, and we've got all these little connected pieces here. Those would become the binding, or not bindings, but like sewed skin together pieces. And I went ahead and, you know, moved it around a little bit here and there just to create kind of like a skin feel. And once this is all dry, we'll be painting it, so you won't be able to see all this decoration underneath. But this is a good start, and once this side's dry, I'll do the other side and then I'll show you the next steps. Hi guys, I'm back. You might be wondering why the book is already brown. I did forget one step, so I wanted to go ahead and do that one with you real quick before you get too far ahead. So what I forgot to do was make these little arches that go on this side of the book out of the paper towel and glue. So you make these little arches, and I'll show you how to do those. And typically what would happen is Winifred's book has fingers, 4 or 5 fingers on the back of the book. My spine really isn't long enough to put those fingers, so I am going to do the arches, but I probably won't do the fingers. I will show you how to make those if you do want to add them, but your spine would need to be, you know, a bit bigger in order to make those fingers. Otherwise mine, you know, is only going to be like the size of a fingernail. So I won't be doing the fingers on here, but I did want to show you how to do those arches, and then I will show you those fingers later on. So let's go ahead and do these arches. So I went ahead and tore off these strips here, and I'm going to go ahead and get them all glued up. And what you're going to do, you just get them all gluey just like you did the other ones. And since my spine is not very big, I'm not going to probably need all this. I'm just going to rip it in half. I just need half of it. And you're just going to do like you did on these ridges over here. Actually, it's probably easier if I flip this book and split it in half here, so I can see my spine better. There we go. So now what I'm going to do is just go ahead and put this like that. Roll around. And you can make your arches high and as wide as you want, but that's about as big as I'm going to make mine. There's one. You can let them touch each other, or you can spread them out a little bit. I'm going to spread mine out a little bit just since I don't have those fingers. I'm just going to try and put these, you know, let them take up as much space as possible here. And then just like your other, you know, the other parts of this sewed together, you know, you can let them be kind of ridged up and everything. So I'm done with that. So once this dries, I will go back through and paint this part. Since I already did the painting step. So when you get to the painting step, you're going to paint the book, as I said, and then also just, you know, make sure that these are painted black and cover it with the brown, just like you're going to do with all of these. Sorry for having forgotten that step. It's kind of an important step considering those fingers do go in there. But we got there. Thanks. So now that the book is dry, front, spine, and back, we're going to want to make an eyeball. To make the eyeball, you can do all sorts of things. They have those rings that have eyeballs on them. I'm going to use air dry clay. We'll see how that goes. We'll make a little eyeball and paint it. You could use the more foam craft clay. What I did on my last one was I just got an old super bouncy ball that had an eyeball on it and cut it in half so the back was flat, and then just glued that on. So lots of different options that you can try. Like I said, this time I'm going to go ahead and try to use this air dry clay and then paint the eyeball itself on there. So here we go. And we're going to want it to be a good size so that it doesn't get hidden, because we are going to get some more paper towel and Mod Podge to make an eyeball fitting once the eyeball's on there, for like a little eyelid and everything like that. So you're going to want it to be big enough so that when you do that, you don't make your eyeball completely disappear. So I think this is a pretty good size here. It fits, it'll fit right about there. Pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and flatten one side of it so that I have something to lay it on. And we're just going to round it out here. I don't work with clay very much, but this stuff is actually really easy to work with, because if you need to, you can get some water and then it smooths out real nice. I made another big project with this that I'll show you guys another day. Let's see, so kind of want to oval it out just a little bit more here. Get some ends. So it's getting pretty, consider that an eyeball shape. It's nice and flat on the bottom, so we can glue it on once it's dry. So let's see what that's going to look like, see if that works. Let's say that's pretty good. Pretty good. You know, I think it might be sticking out a bit too far, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and just grab my X-Acto knife here. Got some glue in it from another project. Go. I'm just going to go ahead and slice this guy right down in half so it's not so fat. Let's move that over here so you can see what I'm doing. So we're just going to slice that off. Gives me a nice flat side. Just shape it up again, make it look like an eyeball again, and then it's not going to stick out from the book as far, which I like that a little bit better. So let's try that again. Yeah, I like that a lot better. So we're going to go ahead and go with that. We're going to paint the eyeball on here in just a minute. Alright, I'm also going to go ahead and paint this eyeball on here right now, and then just let it all dry together. We'll see how that goes. Alright, first things first, I did get my paints. I went with a green, a white, and a black. So I'm going to go ahead and let's start with the green. Maybe I can't open it. There we go. Alright, and since we don't need a lot, I just have a small paintbrush. I'm going to go ahead and dip it in here. I'm just going to go ahead and make a nice circle here. Remember, some of this is going to end up getting covered up by your eyelid fabric. So you just need to kind of make a circle here. Next, I'm going to take my white I'm just going to go ahead and paint out the whites of the eye here. Now I'm going to go ahead and take my black and do the middle of the eye, the pupil here. I'll just let that circle grow as I just dab some little paint on there. And then for a little bit of effect, I'm going to try and just kind of hit up the edge here. Just again, I'm just going to dab it with the black. Not go too crazy with it. I got that done, and now I might just add some little flecks in here just to kind of make it look more eyeballish. So there's the eyeball. So I'm going to go ahead and let that dry. Because I use the clay, it's going to take some time to fully dry, but by tomorrow it should be in a place where I could start gluing it on and finishing the eye on book. Feel free to do whatever color it is you want to do. You can do blue, you could do purple, you could do red, whatever color you wanted to do. I like green, I prefer green. And then, you know, you could always add like a little red mark here if you wanted to make it look more like an eye, which I might do once I've actually got everything formed so I know exactly where that spot would be. But for now, I think that's going to work for our eye. And I do believe Book has a green eye. It might be brown. So again, that part would be your preference. Okay, now that our eye is mostly dry, we're going to go ahead and glue that onto the book here. You're going to want to pick a spot where you can still build the eyelid around it, but also when you want to put your little buckle around it, that it's not going to be too far this way or too far this way. So you're going to put end up putting a little buckle around it, and if you want, you're going to put a magnet here to hold on to it so that that it stays, or you can put the magnet here. It just depends on, I'm not going to be able to because I have this little fold here, so I'll put a magnet on this side. So like I said, just kind of measure out where you'd want to be able to put that square buckle around. To fasten this on, I'm just going to use hot glue gun, and I will hot glue it on, and then we'll make that eyelid. Okay, so I went ahead and got a lot of hot glue on there so that it will stick really good. I'm going to just go ahead and push that right on there and let that start drying. And now I have my last little piece of paper and my Mod Podge, so I'm going to go ahead and get this all ready to go. So now that that's done, what I'm going to do, I'm going to probably just rip this into two little pieces here. And I'm going to go ahead and form around this eyeball. Just kind of form it here around. Kind of make it just look like a little bit of an eyelid here. Doesn't have to be perfect. He's got kind of a weird looking eyeball, and then I want to add a little bit more fabric down here at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of roll that up so you make it just kind of creasy and stuff. Go ahead and just kind of put that right around like so. Fold it all in. Sure it's all stuck down. And just kind of make it look how you want it. So I think that looks pretty good. And so let me show you what I have. So that is my eyeball. I'm going to just fold it in a little bit more here. And I actually think I'm going to add a little bit more creases up here at the top. So you can do this until you like the look. I'm going to add this down here at the bottom just to give it some more oomph from the bottom up. And just kind of get it. I like it really wrinkly so it looks like he's really old and really tired since he just kind of woke up from a 100-year nap. There we go. There's my eyeball. So I'm going to go ahead and let that dry. And once that's dry, then we can start the painting process. Okay, now that we have the eyeball done, we're going to open up the book so we can see both sides and it can dry. It just goes a little bit faster this way. And we're going to go through and we're going to paint all of these black, these ridges that we've made, we're going to paint them all black. Alright, so once you've got the majority of this all filled in, make sure you get all the little cracks and pieces so you don't have any white showing through. And if you want to, you can go ahead and add a little bit of coloring here to the eyeball just so that it makes it a little bit of a different color as well. And then if you feel like it, you can go a little bit further past the lines just to extend your black and maybe, you know, help create a shadow effect as you go through with our next color, which is the brown. So we're going to just go ahead and add a little bit of extra here to all of these. And then if you want, you can add some, you know, just out here just to add some shadow effect. It doesn't have to be a whole ton, but just a little to help create some extra depth when it comes to the skin of the book. Alright, that's pretty good with the black. So I'm going to go ahead and let that dry for a little bit. It doesn't take too long, and then I'll go ahead and do brown next. Okay, now that the black is dried pretty good, I'm going to go through. I've already picked my browns. I've used a couple different colors here so that we can add some different highlights. So just start going through and painting in between all these areas here. You can see the black kind of shows through, and that's what we want so that you have that highlighting. And we're just going to go through all these spaces that are white and get the blacks covered a little bit, and just on the ridges, maybe don't use so much, just a light touch with kind of a little less on your brush, just so that black can really show through on those ridges. Okay, now that I got the book mostly covered here, what I'm going to do is just go through on these edges to make sure that these are also nicely covered. And if you want to, you can go inside the book, since you folded the skin over a little ways, and paint in here as well, just to give it kind of a continuation look. Okay, now that I got all that done, what I do want to do is go through with this lighter color, create some different layers here of color. And I don't want to use too much of my paint on each of these, but I am just going to go through and create slight different colors here. Wipe my brush off. So I've got the paint pretty, just so there's just a little bit on there. And we can go through and hit just a few places here with a slightly lighter color. Just lightly. If you get too much in one space, then you can just go ahead and brush it off a little bit more. I like to do this also when it's wet because then the colors blend together a little bit better. So it's not such a dark contrast. I'm going to get a little bit of just the darker color here because I got too much in this one space with the lighter color. So I'm going to try and go back and fill that in a little bit with just this darker color. A dry brush here so that I can wipe some of that off. So let's get just a little bit more. Right here, there's almost nothing. Okay, there we go. So I like the way that looks. Got some different highlights and lowlights going on. Okay, so now that we've got the book all painted, looks pretty good here. Here's the back side, front side. I did mention that I'd liked the pages to be yellow already, and whether your pages are yellowed or white, either way, what you can do is go through and get a little bit of paint on your paintbrush here and just kind of go like this along the edges. And if you even want to get your paintbrush wet a little bit so that the paint spreads a little easier, you can do that. It doesn't stick all in one spot. But just go through, kind of brown them edges up a little bit just to make it look like it's old and used. So I've finished painting all three edges. And what's going to happen, because I used a little bit of water with it, these pages are going to end up swelling a little. And it's going to give it a nice, old, crinkly look. Alright, so now we can really start getting into some of the fun parts here where we're going to start decorating the different parts of the book. And for that, I've got some puff paint here. I picked gold metallic puff paint. What we're going to do is we're going to create some stitching. We're just going to go ahead and make a little line. Just make some little stitches over some of these. So we're going to go ahead and let that dry, but we're also going to do the same thing over here on the ridges and on the back side. But we're going to go ahead and let that dry for now, and while that's drying, we'll move on to some of the other fun parts. For this next part, I got some of this air dry modeling clay, and you can get the Crayola Magic ones. That's the ones I used before, and I got in the white, and it worked really well. But since I'm just going to paint all these black anyway, it doesn't really matter what color we go with. I mean, I can do the black just to make it one less step, but really any of these colors will work. The first thing that we're going to create is this part here, which is basically just a long snake on a flat piece. So I'm going to go ahead and make that. I'm going to use the book as my measuring tape here. It's going to be about that long. It's perfect. What I'm going to do is use one of these nifty little tools here and cut it out so it's nicely rectangle. Alright, so now we have a pretty good rectangle. I'm going to just go ahead and smooth these edges down. There we go. And we'll use that for right there. And then I don't quite have enough of the greens, so I'm going to go ahead and grab, I'll go with yellow. And I'm going to make the snake this time. And we're going to make the head first of all. So I'm just going to go ahead and shape this guy kind of in a snake head way. So just kind of make it, make it a kind of oval like that. Point it down at the nose, kind of point it at the neck, and you got a nice little head. And we're going to go ahead and set that right on the end. And then we're just going to weave this guy back and forth. If we need to make a little extra here, we can. Make him a little bit longer. We're just going to keep on weaving him back and forth. Till we get to the end. You just got your little end there. There you go. Now you got your nice little snake. And we're just going to go ahead and let that guy air dry overnight. So there's our first piece. So we're going to actually make 2 of those, because there's one on the back side as well. So I'm going to go ahead and make a second one of those real quick. Next, we're going to make these crazy little guys. We're going to need to make 4 of them. So it's going to be a snake that's we're going to twist like a pretzel, and then a nice little triangle that fits into the corner of the book with a nice rounded section. So let's go ahead and get started on that. So now we have our nice little corner here. And now we're going to make the snake that goes over the top of it. So I'm going to cut these into pieces because it's the only way that I can really figure out how to do this. Otherwise I get very confused on all the twists and turns. So we're going to make this where it goes about halfway down. So the head hangs off, and then this guy goes just about halfway down here. Another piece. Just going to go ahead and cut that guy. This piece is going to go, it attaches here, so it looks like it goes under, and then it comes around the corner, and then we're just going to let that guy hang off there for a minute. Then we have a much longer piece here. And this one starts here where it looks like it comes from underneath, but it goes around, and then it looks like it goes over here, up and around this corner, and then it attaches here, so it looks like it goes under there as well. So there's that piece. Then we have this one, that we're going to go ahead and bring back around. And it kind of looks like it comes around. And then we're just going to cut a little bit off here because it kind of goes this way, like it goes under right there. And then from there, you have this guy comes down the rest of the way like it goes underneath. And then he comes up and around and into this spot like he goes underneath again. Then we have one more section. It's probably a little long, we'll cut it a little bit shorter. And this one here just kind of goes from here to here. And there's your snake, so you can just kind of flatten it down. And this guy will go right here in the corner. And we're going to want to make us 3 more of these. Promised, I will go ahead and show you how to make these fingers as well. Like I said, mine's not going to have a whole lot of room, so we'll see if I do anything with that or not, but I'll show you how to make a finger. So it's pretty simple, just roll it out depending on the width and size that you want. Make it blunted on both sides. Kind of smush it down so it's kind of flat like that. So now you got a nice little finger. And then you're just gonna get a tool, however you want to do it. Just kind of draw in your nail here. Just make like a little nail bed. Then you can make your little lines for your knuckles. Make a couple of them. And voila, you got a finger. So you make 5 of those. And then you would just glue them to the spine of your book. Just made myself a really tiny finger. And I think that might actually work. So we're just going to make 5 of those. Okay, so now that I've gotten all those pieces done, I'm going to go ahead and let them all dry. Now we're going to make this little claw thing that goes on the back of the book, and it starts the process of the clasp. So we're going to start with this piece here. First, we're just going to go ahead and flatten this out. Then we're going to go ahead and just cut out little toes. Just going to cut off this excess right on over here. We have our little fingers, and now we can just start shaping them however we want. We're going to leave this little point here because that's going to hang over the edge of the book to give you something to connect everything to. You're gonna go ahead and make one of those snakes again, but you're gonna make it very, very skinny so that we can make kind of like a mummy wrap over this hand. Okay, as you can see, this is very thin. You can make it even thinner if you wanted. And what we're gonna do is just kind of go back and forth and weave kind of a mummy wrap looking thing here. So we're gonna we'll start on this finger here. And we're just kind of gonna go back and forth. It does not have to be perfect at all because you're gonna want all of those indents to kind of show up. You can kind of go different directions with it. And then we're done with that finger. You're just gonna go finger by finger to start. Now that you've got all that done, just kind of smash it down a little bit because it wants to look like an old wrapped up dead mummy's hand. Then you're going to go ahead and use these little pieces again of yellow, again just so you can see a little bit better. And I'm going to make little claws for the end of each of these toes, or fingers, or whatever you want to call them. Just make yourself a nice little pointed end, make it round, just kind of attach it on there, and there's a nice little claw, and then do that 3 more times. And now you have your little mummy foot, hand, whatever you want to call it. And that will go on to the back of the book. Here's another view of the one I made before. And then we will do the next piece, which is going to be the connector between here and here. Okay, so now that we have the book done, painted, all these pieces are getting dry, we're gonna get one more piece to make, which is this one here. This is the piece that would go over the eye. So you got to kind of measure around your eye in order to get the right size. Also, I did buy these little clasps here to be able to open and close the book and clasp it. It's up to you on if you want to do that or not. So the first piece we're going to make, because we got 2, is the little connecting piece between the clasps. So I just make kind of a nice little square, easy peasy. And then we're going to take a look at how wide the book is, and it'll need to be about that long. So I'm going to make it that long. Make it into a nice little square, rectangle. And then I just like to make a little bit of design on it. Something to kind of just make crosses. Go diagonal this way, and then diagonal this way. And then you're just going to let that guy dry, but that's about what it's going to look like. And then we got the last piece to make, which is the clasp that goes over the eye to connect it to. Alright, and so now I'm going to want to have a little piece that hangs over on the end here because I want something to, again, glue it to. So I'll hang that way. And then I'm gonna just make this go around the eyeball. And it's gonna go to there. It's actually pretty good. So I'm just gonna, there's my shape. And flat. Then got myself a nice square end here. And I'm going to test it one more time, make sure that's the right size and shape. So that is the last piece I need. I'm going to go ahead and decorate this guy just a little bit here as well. I'm just going to make some lines. I'm going to make it look kind of like a belt. So just make some little lines here. Don't worry if you can't see it real well. Once you paint it, you'll be able to see it. So there's the lines, and then I'm just going to poke little holes in between just to, again, make it have just a little bit of a design, kind of like a designed belt. And that's about as much as I'm going to get for that. Now that all my pieces are dry, I'm going to go ahead and paint all of it black. Okay, after all your black has dried, your next step is to go through and get some gray or silver, however you want. You're just going to kind of hit it up here a little bit. But you're going to go ahead and let some of the black still be there. So what I like to do is go through with one paintbrush like that, and then go through with a dry paintbrush. Just kind of scrape some of that off of there just to let that black shine through a little bit more. Just to give it kind of like an old-timey look. See, it's kind of old and rusted over. Some of the colors coming off. And you just go through all your pieces like that until you're all done. Then let them dry again. For the fingers and this little extra piece here, you're going to want to do the same thing, but instead of with the silver, you're going to want to use a brown color because this is all, body parts. So you're going to want to use a brown instead. Okay, now that all of our pieces are painted, we have our silver pieces and we have our brown pieces. We get to just hot glue all of these onto the book. I'm going to go ahead and start with the fingers. I'm just get a bunch of hot glue. And I'm just going to attach them. And just keep on going with the fingers till you get all 5 on. All the fingers are on. So then next, I'm going to go ahead and glue on these little corner pieces, and they're just going to go onto the corners, the bottom and the top corners, front and back. So go ahead and get those glued on. Then these snake ones just go right here on the edge of the book, again, front and back. Okay, those are done. Now we have our clasp that goes around our eye. So that guy. And we want to line him up. And then we got this little piece here. And that's going to go right here. And then your foot is going to line up right in the middle of all that. So you're just going to find where that lines up best. And then glue that foot on right in the middle of your book. So now you have the back of your book, the front of your book, and if you went ahead and bought some of those clasps, you would go ahead and glue them on here so that when you opened it, it goes like that. I did not buy those clasps at this point in time, so I'm just going to glue these two together like that, and then glue it to here so that when we open it, it opens, it just comes away from that. So that's how I'm going to do it this time. And voila, we have a book that opens.